welcome to part 3 of CIS, well actually, welcome to part 3 of week 5, cis204, Unix shell scripting and utilities. And we were talking about shell antecedents in the last segment. So shell syntax emulates formal programming languages. So the Bourne shell emulated Elgol. C shell and 10x C shell picked up the C language, and Corn shell and Bash use a combination of both shell and C shell constructs, so you'd expect it to be kind of C-like in its language. When we get into the classroom, you're going to need to have these exercise docs copied, and you'll need to make sure that they're there. You can cp space -r space tilde hbecker3 / exercise underbar doc space dot. And what that does is it recursively copies from my home directory and the directory exercise docs, and it puts them into your file system, your home directory, in exercise docs. That's what the dot says, keep the same naming and drop them in. So make sure that you have that available, and we will double check that in class, of course. So let's look at the Bourne shell syntax and constructs. The shebang line is, pound ball bat, and the shell is bin shell. Comment lines begin with a pound sign. Wildcards, file name expansion, standard I/O redirection pipes, quotes to protect meta characters, locals with an equal sign. Global variables use the export, so you could, path equal /bin :/user/bin, and then export space path. You can extract variables using the echo command. Echo $ variable underbar name pulls the contents of the variable out. So reading user input is read. Arguments can be passed. And why do I say that? Is because you can read information from the user, from the command line. And you'll see that when we start building shells. Arguments can be passed to a script from the command line. So arguments preceded by a $ in the script, e.g. $1, $2, splat gets all, and $# or $pound tells the number of arguments that are there. So arrays can be used, declared by set and then followed by the array. Command substitution can be used. In other words, I can set up this now equal date, and echo today is $now will give me today is whatever date. So if I do that, let's do this real quick here. Now equal, and this is this funky little odd duck single quote that is sitting right underneath the tilde on the keyboard. So what does that do? Well, date is a command, believe it or not. If I type the command date, there it is. Okay, so that gives me that. So now let's take a look at this. Echo $today is, or echo today is $now. Okay, so what happens when I type that? Actually, I'm not going to type it. I'm going to copy it and paste it into this command line. So today is $now. So what should I get? What do I expect to come back from that? It echoes the contents of $now. The contents of $now are an issued date command. And that's because it has these funky little... Whoa! That's because it has these funky little single quotes around it. So there you go. And we found the scrolling that's available in that particular shell. Okay. So next up, Bourne shell syntax and constructs. So you can do math in this thing. N equal expression 5 space plus space 5. So okay. So let's do that. N equal this, right? Now, what is that I'm doing here? EXPR 5 plus 5. That gives me 10. So what am I doing? n equals. Well, and again, it's this funky quotes, right? I'm creating this expression, 5 plus 5, putting that in special quotes. Okay, so now I have an n. Now let's echo $n, right? $n. What should I expect? I should expect 10. And that's what I got. Okay. So operators. You can do equality, equals, not equals, or you can use the -eq-ne. You can use logical operators, and, or, and not. You can use relational operators, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. And you can also use conditional statements, if, else, if. Shell will also allow you to do loops, while loops, until loops, and for loops. You can also use the shell to test files. The D, is it a directory? Does file exist? Is it readable? Is it what's the size of the file? Is it writable? Is it executable? Those types of things. Okay, so we will examine in the UNIX shells by example, page 46, this example 0203. And it's sitting in the exercise directory, and we'll look at that in class. Also, we're going to edit an example. We'll edit the example 0203. We're going to use touch to add a file name, test 0203, and then we're going to use VI to edit example 0203 and replace every occurrence of file with test 0203. Then we're going to change the permissions of the file using the chmod command, chmod command to 755. So let's talk about C and TC shell syntax and constructs. The shebang line, again, is pound, ballbat, and the shell, bin C shell or bin TC shell. Comment lines begin with the pound. You can use wildcards, the standard I/O redirection pipes. To set variables, you use setEnv. You can read user input with the $ and then the redirect. Arguments can be passed to a script from the command line. Arrays can be used. They're declared with parentheses. Command substitution can be used. The same thing we saw earlier with the now equal date. Echo today is now. But notice I used the command set in that. Okay, so arithmetic can be done. And this is really fun. It's a little bit different. At, space, and you have to have spaces everywhere. So at, space, in, space, equal, space, 5, space, plus, space, 5. And then echo $n. You can use the usual suspects operators, equal, equal, not equal, and equal being equal, not equal, greater than or equal, less than or equal, and, which is the ampersand, the double pipe for or, and the ballbat for not. Those look just like C. Conditional statements. You can use if, else, and switch. Switch. Loops, while, for each, and you can also do file testing. Different set of file testing examples here. So there are C and TC shell examples that we'll look at in the exercises. We'll go to the copied exercise directory to do that, but you'll get a chance to work with those in class. We'll edit the example 0201. We'll use VI to add a local variable file that will take input from standard input from the terminal user. Okay. On the lines that begin with if, change the file to $file. Okay, so that's basically telling you to give it whatever the user put in. And then we'll walk through that example 0202. We'll do that in class again. So corn shell, my favorite shell. And it's my favorite because I used it the most. Although, to be honest with you, I use bash exclusively these days. The shebang line is pound, ballbat, and the shell /bin/ksh. The comment lines begin with a pound. Wildcards, the regular file name expansion, standard I/O redirection. You can display output with echo or print, or printf. Local variables set with an equal sign or type set. Global variables use export, so we've seen that. You can extract variables using echo. Use read to read user input. Arguments can be passed. And when I say use read to read user input, which read? Okay, it's a built-in. Read file read. Is there a read? Nope, no such file or directory. Read's a built-in though. So arguments can be passed to a script from the command line. Arrays can be used. Elements are accessed with a subscript starting with 0. Dollar, curly brace element, square bracket, 0, close square bracket, close curly brace. Command substitution can be used just like we've seen before, but notice something odd here. I put that command now that I created inside parentheses. Now again, your mileage may vary. You always test before you deploy. So arithmetic functions, you can do integer, typeset space dash I space variable underbar name. So variable underbar name equal 5 plus 4, and then print, okay, $num. So in this case, if num equal 5 plus 4, print $num should give you a 9. Equality, strings equal, not equal. For numbers, it's equal, and the not. Logical and or relational, conditional statements, if else case, loops, while and until, and some more file testing with different option names. We'll go through a couple of corn shell examples, although to be honest with you, I'm not sure that will be really effective because let's take a peek here. Which K shell? Do I have it here? Yes, I do. So let's do an ls-l. User bin K shell. We'll have to take a peek at this. And again, it's alternatives K shell. So we do have a K shell here. And this is an ATS-CIS- or ats-cis.jccc.edu. So which C shell, right? User bin C shell, ls-l, user bin C shell. Just to double check. Yep, it's there. It's 10x C shell, so we'll see that. Okay. Again, we'll go through some corn shell examples in class. Bash shell syntax and constructs. The shebang line is pound, ball bat, bin bash. So this looks a little bit like K shell. Okay. You use, read. Oh, and hey, look, this looks like K shell down here. So your mileage may vary again. Just make sure that you test before you deploy anything. So bash shell syntax and constructs, declare space dash I, variable underbar name, typeset space dash I, variable underbar name equal 5 plus 5, and then you can echo that and it will give you 10. So equality looks like K shell. If else case, while, function name. You can actually create functions in this thing. And then there's file testing that you can do. So pretty straightforward. You can also do command line insertion. So in other words, this is echo $date, echo $date, printf. This is a line of text followed by a new line, those kinds of things. But I think what I'd like to do to close this thing out is take a look at the differences between shells. So there is Unix.com, answers to frequently asked questions, differences between various shells. So this is kind of interesting. Shell, no job control, no aliases, no directory stack, no command history, no command line editing, no VI on the command line because VI wasn't invented when the shell was built. Emacs command line editing, sorry. Rebindable command line editing, nope. Username lookup, nope. Login, logout watch, nope. File name completion, forget about it. Username completion, forget about it. History completion, forget about it. So it's pretty much quasi incapable. You come up to C shell, and some of these things are available, but notice the command line editing is not available. But here you get to K shell and bash, and look at all of the good things that bash allows you to do. Bash is the fourth shell in, so shell, C shell, K shell, and bash. And you can see that there's quite a bit of Y's in bash. Now, RC and ES are a couple of shells that we won't deal with. We will not deal with these. Z shell is a shell you may want to look at on your own, but I'm not going to go through Z shell other than just to let you know it exists in for our purposes. And let's check to see if there even is a Z shell. Nope. There is no Z shell in the ATS CIS environment. Let's check to see if it's sitting here in the Ubuntu environment. Which Z shell? Nope, doesn't exist in the Ubuntu environment. So just there. So let's go to this RC. What the heck is the RC shell? We've already talked about it. RC is a command line interpreter for version 10 Unix, which is a late version of Unix out of the labs, but it's late in the sense that I think cis5 release 4 had been there, and 10 was the last version of Unix that came out of the shells. It was created by Tom Duff, and it was created for this Plan 9 from Bell Labs, which we've seen before. Uses C-like control structures instead of the Algo-like. So it's kind of an interesting little thing, something you may want to take a look at. Now, about the various shells. Bash shell supposedly has the most features incorporating job control, alias, shell functions, sensible I/O redirection, directory stack, command history, editing of the command line, VI editing, or Emacs editing. You can use that, do that with a set space -o space VI will set your editing to VI. Most people use the Emacs editing. Emacs is an editor that we don't use. I do not believe that I've got a copy. I may have a copy of Emacs. Nope, I don't have a copy of Emacs on the Ubuntu image. And if we take a look here, let's see which Emacs exists. There is no Emacs in the atscis.jccc.edu image either. So there's file name completion, username completion, host name completion, history completion, built-in arithmetic evaluation, all sorts of fun things. So it has a large number of features. The dash shell, which is default in Debian and Ubuntu, is much lighter, and that helps the system to boot faster. And we've talked about that before. C shell and the TC shell programs have C programming style interface. 10x C shell is the one you want to use, and it's the one that's available in the atscis.jccc.edu. So Linux distributions ship with either a bash or a dash, whereas Unix variants generally ship with the Korn shell. Use bash. Get comfortable with bash because bash is available everywhere in the world. Anywhere you go to that has a Linux distribution, you will find bash. Bash is the tool of choice for almost every Unix or Linux shell programmer. Anyhow, that is the end of part 3 of week 5 of Unix shell scripting and utilities, CIS 204. And we'll yap at you next week.